Good afternoon, everyone. The November 20th, 2025 work session of the Gwinnett County Board of Education is now called to order. Without further delay, I turn the meeting over to Interim Superintendent Dr. Taylor.
Thank you, Chair Dr. Simmons, and of course, good afternoon to everyone present. At this time, we'll have Kathy Harden, Chief Human Resources Officer, come forward and provide an update on staff reports. While Chief Harden's en route, I did want to just take a special point of privilege to just bring your attention to a couple things on the agenda. This is a relatively busy day for us with some additional activities. At 2:50, we definitely want to make sure that we give you an opportunity for the governance team training discussion. This is where we were going to ask that you have a chance to work through whether or not you wanted us to explore separating the business meeting from the work session on separate days. And so we want to make sure that you have an opportunity to have that discussion. Immediately following that, you'll be meeting with the TAC reps. So we're going to move as quickly as we can, but I just wanted to bring to everyone's attention that hard stop that we're going to have to be able to get those things in. Thank you. All right, Chief Harden.
Thank you, Dr. Taylor. Dr. Simmons, Board Chair, Dr. Taylor, and board members, good afternoon. The HR team and I are pleased to present the Human Resources Report for the month of November. As usual, we've connected our presentation to our strategic priorities, priority number 1, number 2, and number 3. And you can see there which ones are identified. The teacher vacancy report. This slide provides an update on our current teacher vacancies as well as a historical context that helps us understand where we are in comparison to previous years. We currently have 12 vacant teaching positions for the 25-26 school year. As you've requested, we are sharing month-by-month comparison. Since the last board meeting on October 16th, we have hired 33 teachers and posted 17 teacher job postings. You'll also notice two trends represented here. The first shows our vacancy trajectory throughout the school year, and the second shows how our vacancy numbers in the month of November compare over the last 3 years. And as I was looking at this, I thought back to November of 22, which I think I was about 3 months into the position. We had a hefty 225 positions open at that time. And so I would like to take a point of privilege to commend the talent management team for the work that they have done to consistently improve how we staff our buildings. Paraprofessional vacancy report. This slide reflects our current paraprofessional vacancies, shown alongside the same trend data as the teacher vacancies. Both the year-to-year date pattern and the 3-year trend for the month of November. We currently have 25 vacant paraprofessional positions for the 25-26 school year. One important point of context for the paraprofessional staffing is that these roles play a significant part in our Grow Your Own pathway. Throughout the school year, we often have paraprofessionals who transition into teacher positions, especially those who are completing preparation programs or have earned certification. These internal promotions are a success for our pipeline and benefit our long-term teacher workforce, though they do result in new paraprofessional openings during the year. We also want to be transparent that recruiting paraprofessionals mid-year can be more challenging due to the prorated salary schedule once the school year is underway. However, our recruitment team remains actively engaged with principals to ensure that we are identifying and recommending high-quality candidates who are committed to supporting students and classrooms. As with our teacher staffing approach, we continue to prioritize fit, readiness, and sustained support rather than filling vacancies quickly without alignment to school needs. Our next data is our hiring update for the 25-26 school year. This slide shows the data regarding new teacher hires so far for the 25-26 school year. We've hired 1,455 teachers in total for this school year. The new teacher by level, you can see here, elementary 486, middle 268, high 237, and special education 464. The new teacher hires by title, 886 in Title I schools, 569 in non-title schools. Currently, there are 8 contingent offers in progress. The data from our substitute staffing team continues to show positive outcomes for the 25-26 school year. As requested, we've included historical substitute staffing data on this slide. Our third of 5 substitute paraprofessional learning sessions was held this month and focused on building the capacity of our subs in the classroom management, effective engagement strategies, and working with students with disabilities and our multilingual learners. After completion, substitutes have the skills and tools to feel more confident as they enter the classroom. This program is a part of our Grow Your Own initiative. It serves as a stepping stone for our substitutes who aspire to transition into teacher or paraprofessional positions in the future. Well, a wellness initiative that we are pleased to share with you, Last month, we were fortunate to have the Northside Mobile Mammography Unit here on the campus. The mobile mammography unit provided the opportunity for employees to receive their breast screening on site. There were private areas available for intake, dressing rooms, and the screening scan. It was convenient, fast, and most of the screenings took less than 30 minutes from the intake to departure. This is the second initiative that we have had with Northside, and this is a second part of that. While the mobile was on the outside, we had 30 different healthcare provider groups associated with Northside offering screenings, appointments, and information. And that ranged anywhere from carotid artery testing, blood pressure, blood sugar, and osteopathic screening stations that were available. And you can see here by the photos that the staff were highly engaged in this activity. We have some additional dates with Northside that we have not firmed up yet, but we do have availability from them and a commitment from them to figure out a way to navigate some of these services throughout our clusters. And we'll have additional information along that line in the coming months. So that was November 12th that we had that event. And this concludes the HR report. I stand ready to answer any questions.
Board members, I'll turn it over to you for questions and or comments.
Thank you, Chairwoman Dr. Simmons, and thank you, Chief Hardin, for this information. I just want to commend the district for, I was looking at the teacher vacancy report and the paraprofessional vacancy report, and in my notes, there was a slight increase in October, but we've been able to bring that number down in November. So I'll leave the rest of the time for my colleagues.
Thank you.
Great work, Chief Hardin. I love to see the trends over the last few years. That's good to see. I think it's a combination of culture, things we've done as a board to try to help improve
Absolutely.
the pay and how we compare to districts around us, but certainly lion's share goes to you and your team for that.
Thank you for that.
Do you know if, I know Oakland Meadow had some parapro vacancies, and they had a special on-site job fair, I think early last week. Do you have any idea how that went? I know that they're a specific place that really needs their parapros with the students they're interacting with.
Yes, absolutely they do. With that question, I'll defer to Dr. Mosley to give the specifics of that event.
Yes, we had 2 para interview days at Oakland Meadow last week, and I think we had 16 candidates that showed, and we were able to offer candidates positions. We were able to fill all of those positions with those candidates that came.
Fantastic. That's great to hear. Thank you for the focus there and the effort. That's one of those ways that I think demonstrates the heart of Gwinnett when we put the extra effort into helping the least of these. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chief Hardin, to you and your team for all this great work. I know how heavy of a lift it is to keep all the teaching staff as well as the parapro and the support staff fully staffed in our system. So great work to that. And I really love the wellness initiatives that we're doing for the district to have on-site screening and support for our employees here. And I wonder if that's something that can be, I know it could be a heavy lift to have it spread out across the district to different sites, to different clusters, but I love that opportunity to have that available to our employees.
That is the goal.
That's excellent.
That is the goal. We have a number of dates that they have given us as their availability, and so now we're navigating how do we operationalize that. Obviously, we would have to work with School Improvement Office to help facilitate coordinating that. And that's the first time Mr. Nebel is hearing that, but we do have some dates, and we intend to work with Northside to ensure that we can get the mobile and some of these other offerings out into our clusters.
I have no doubt that's a heavy lift, but I love the availability of that, and just as an added employee benefit to our teams. It's fantastic. So great work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for this presentation. I have a few questions. The first question I have is related to slide number 3. On that slide, we have the November 2025 data, and I do appreciate the historical trends and the percentages associated with those historical trends. So my question is, when you look at the rates, we see a steady progress from 2022 to 2025. And can you share, besides the year of 2022, which it looks like that was a post-COVID year, so that may be an outlier there, but if you can share specifically what strategies and techniques you all have done as a team to make those steady improvements.
Certainly. 22 was the first year that we began to lay out a full-blown recruitment strategy. 22, early 23 is when we actually set up a full recruitment team, sourcing specialist. We developed the digital campaign where we were able to really start seeing where our candidates are coming from, what kind of traction we were getting from our candidates. We also did quite a bit of work with our applicant tracking system so that recruiters could be more effective in the work, as well as the candidate experience was a part of that work, and for candidates to be able to see where they were in the process. At one point, you could apply and you didn't have any idea if you were under review, being considered, had an interview, or what have you. And so we did a lot of work with our ATS system to ensure that candidates could see where they were in the process. We reduced the number of clicks to complete an application. So it's not one single initiative, but a collective of a number of things around our recruitment infrastructure, building the team, and setting up a strategy.
Okay. Thank you so much for your leadership in this area. The next question I have is, if you look at slide number 4, we have historical trends here for November 2024 around paraprofessionals. I see that the percentage rate isn't here. I think it would be helpful here if we could have the consistency around the percentage
On the
rates.
years? Sure.
Yeah, that would
We
be
can have
helpful.
that.
Because that kind of tells to me a different story that might be a little bit more precise around what's happening. But I do see and appreciate the numbers here and the totals and what they depict. But I also have a wondering around the overall percentage.
Sure, we can include that.
Okay, and then the next question I have is slide number 5. You have here the hiring update, and I see we still have some opportunities around the totals for new hires. Like, can you share a bit about? I guess my wondering is Title I schools and the new hires and the quality of those new hires at those schools. I know we don't have like a quality slide here, but one of the things that I'm recognizing is the teachers have a different level of standards in teaching at the Title I schools, and we can do a better job at trying to figure out how we have more teachers with experience, and I'm trying to be careful with like how I express this, because I'm very grateful for the teachers who are working in our school system and the teachers who are making sacrifices and in these schools, but I also understand that there's a difference. And
Absolutely, there is a
how are you
difference
guys
in-
navigating that?
I think at the heart of what you're getting to is retention. It's not just about the hires. The hires come as a result of turnover. And so heavy focus on retention. Dr. Taylor has just given us the green light to pilot Teacher Leader Pathway program that we'll be looking to pilot in the Meadow Creek cluster, as well as New Teacher Academy that will address probably some of what you have concern around, and that is ensuring that new teachers, specifically provisionally certified teachers, are getting the level of support that they need to be able to demonstrate what they need to do with our students in the classroom. And so we appreciate Dr. Taylor for supporting these initiatives, and that would be a joint initiative between talent management and teaching and learning. And again, I'm speaking out of turn. Chief West is just hearing this as well, but this is brand new, and we're working to get on the calendar to talk about how we can leverage this work as a collective team. But we're looking forward to looking at some good outcomes with that.
This is great. My wondering here is also if there would be some incentive tied to this. Have you all discussed that? I know this is just brand new, but I'm really grateful that this is happening. And I also have heard a lot about differentials and the need for other incentives for our teachers to, one, be attracted to teach at our Title I schools, and not just that, beyond the 3 years, to actually want to stay and not leave our Title I schools.
All of that will be a part of the conversation that we'll have coming up.
Okay, so it's still very new. Well, thank you for that. I appreciate Dr. Taylor, you all, your team for addressing this issue here. I'm first learning about it just now, and I think this is great as well, and very helpful. And then my final question is really related to the leadership pipeline and our teachers who are engaged in like the Teacher of the Year process. And we've had conversations about Teacher of the Year and what that looks like and what that process, how this process could be improved to be more inclusive around people who aren't sort of reliant on, leadership being like the roadblock for them to be able to access the opportunities. What is the progress around inclusion of people who want to pursue not just Teacher of the Year, but also aspiring leaders who want to be assistant principals or principals? Feedback, again, I've heard is around the process that I think is consistent regardless of the level, but just how have we made some differences around that?
I'll ask Chief West to respond to the Teacher of the Year piece, and then I'll come back and address the Aspiring Leaders Program.
So with the Teacher of the Year process, there is the opportunity for staff to nominate themselves to be a part of the process. And the leader isn't the decision maker at the school level. So I can include in this week's board update just a recap of all the steps that are part of that process, that how folks are nominated from the school level and how they kind of navigate through each phase of the process.
So the Aspiring Leaders and Aspiring Principal Program, it is multi-pronged as well. There are a number of layers to the selection process. The principal is a part of that process with a reference, but there is a writing component, an interview component. The scoring of all of the pieces is done by a third party. It is not scored internal to Gwinnett. So it is multifaceted. We've done a lot of work around looking at We've even decreased the number of years that it takes to qualify to get into the program. We look at diversity and makeup of the cohort so that we're addressing diversity needs across the district. So there are a number of things that we're doing to ensure that people have opportunity to participate in the Aspiring Leaders and Principals program.
Thank you. I think what will be helpful is because we get feedback from, or I get feedback from different community members about not making it into the program and then not getting the feedback around how they could do better for the next year. So you have people applying for multiple years who feel like they're highly qualified and like they're never getting in, and there may be this perception around sort of relationship-based and preferential treatment that's a part of that process. So I think it would be helpful if we could get like an understanding around the differences and the improvements around the process.
Sure.
So that we can communicate more effectively around it was like this, now these are the improvements we've made to ensure that there aren't biases in the process around relationship and preferential treatment and all of those things.
Happy to do that. In addition, those programs are highly competitive. We may have 250 applicants and only 50 seats in the program. And the number of seats that we have in the program is based off the projected number of retirees and promotions and that type of thing that we can foresee happening in the district. And so we do have a cap on the number of participants that we can have in a cohort. But it is a highly sought after, highly competitive process, and we always have to say no to a number of people that are in that pipeline. And we do encourage people to persevere and continue to apply because you're not given that opportunity the first time to please come back. And if anyone is interested in individual feedback, they are welcome to reach out and we can provide that one-on-one feedback. Sure.
Because we have a hard stop and need to meet with our tech, I'll follow up with my questions.
Sure.
Pass it over to you, Dr. Taylor.
All right, thank you, Chief Harden. We will now have Greg Johnson, Executive Director of Budget, Strategy, and Risk Management, provide the monthly financial update, followed by Patrick Burke, Interim Chief Operations Officer, who will provide an eSPLOS update. Mr. Johnson.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairperson Dr. Simmons, board members, and Dr. Taylor. On behalf of Chief Mallard, I'm pleased to present the General Fund Monthly Financial Report for the period ending September 30, 2025. This is the third financial report for the operating budget for fiscal year 2026. The total revenue combined is $217 million, which is less than 8% of total budgeted revenue. Local revenues are 61.9% lower than budget through September because property taxes were not due until November. State revenues are 3.65% lower than budget. Both state and local revenue are trending as expected and are not a concern at this time. General fund federal revenue, such as ROTC reimbursements and indirect cost revenue, is 19.5% more than budget. On the expense side, salaries and benefits are 44.3% below budget because normal school operations did not begin until August, while non-salary expenditures are 13.8% below budget. 79% of general fund spending through September was for direct instruction and instructional services. Fund balance remains as expected within normal trends and will increase significantly in November once property taxes are collected. This concludes my report. Thank you.
Board members, any questions or comments?
Yeah, I just want to thank our community and everyone who supporting meeting the needs of our facilities and our school improvements. So thank you.
Good evening, Board Chair. Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, if no other questions or comments, Dr. Taylor?
Sorry. Sorry, jumping up too quickly. Good evening, Board Chair Dr. Simmons, board members, Dr. Taylor. During this short presentation, we'll provide an update on the outcome of our East Blas referendum, acknowledge the work leading up to November 4th, and share just a little bit of information about next steps. As we know, on November 4th, the majority of Gwinnett County voters supported the continued use of East Blas to fund our capital plan. Just a couple quick data points. The 20.7% voter turnout was much higher than the initial projections we had received from the Board of Elections. Advance voting was very active. Almost 47,000 voters participated prior to Election Day. And there were 74,000 voters coming out, actually a little bit more, on Election Day itself. 69.5% of voters approved the referendum, and the referendum passed by majority in all 156 precincts within Gwinnett County. You may have noticed information sharing this time looked a little different than in the past. I want to take a moment to thank Chief Laramie and our Capital Communications Committee for their work. Just a few things you may have noticed. Dr. Taylor and this board have been very clear about expectations around accountability and transparency. Prior to our area board meetings back in April, you may remember we built a new web tool where we were sharing information about the current capital plan. I want to thank Chief Mallard and Greg Johnson, who was just up here for the development of that tool, as well as our TNI and F&O staff for building the database that feeds that tool. That's something we're going to continue to keep updated. Building upon that expectation, of course, Capital Plan 2031 included project and program detail. That information, too, is on our website. Informational material was provided to all district leaders at the end of July about the capital plan and East Blas. This empowered our leaders to share factual information with our communities in the months prior to the election so voters could make an informed decision for themselves whether they were going to vote and how they were going to vote. Informational social media posts, videos, and other materials were also supplied by our engagement team. And then we had a very active community engagement process, including presenting to our county commissioners, municipalities, other elected officials, community and civic organizations to educate and inform our stakeholders about East Blas and the proposed Capital Plan 2031. In the end, over 150 information sharing presentations were provided by district leaders. Again, this board, Dr. Taylor, have been very clear about transparency and accountability. We've heard this also from our community over the past many months. East Blas is not a once every 5-year event. As this board expects, we're going to continue to give updates to our community on a regular basis as we execute this work. That is the expectation, and we are going to fulfill that expectation. We'll continue to provide regular information to our community as work is executed, and we'll expand and use the tools that we have developed during this short transition plan or transition period. Additional changes are also evident in sort of the next steps or what we're working on now and what we plan to bring to the board and to the public. GCPS leaders are currently refining, updating, and consolidating our expenditure and revenue projections based on current market conditions related to this capital plan. Using this information, budget managers will work with our business and finance team to build our budget structure and our capital cash flows to ensure successful execution of the program. The sequence and schedule of CP Capital Plan 2031 will be finalized, aligning timelines, cash flows, annualized, and 5-year budgets. The board and our public will receive an annual capital plan update during our budget process in the spring. Our vision for this really is we're going to report, every year we're going to report on the completion of recent projects. We're going to talk about what's coming up within that next fiscal year, what's on the horizon, provide updates regarding project and program schedules, and anything else that comes up in the process. Each year, when the board approves the budget, we will update information on the web tool, and of course, we'll have an opportunity to engage this board prior to our spring presentation. And with that, Dr. Taylor, this concludes our presentation.
Board members, any questions or comments?
Mr. Burke, thank you for that update. I appreciate it. One of the things that came out in this process was and I think it was Mr. Johnson actually at an informational event that I was a part of that talked about the annualized audit that we undergo for all of our eSplost receipts and expenditures. When does that take place? Because my first thought was in this update, I was thinking that this update ought to take place right after we get the results back from that audit so we can tie what it is we've done, said we were going to do, then did, right? And then the anticipated no findings from the audit that's done by a third outside party. Do you know when that happens?
I'm going to have to phone a friend, but I will say that's an annual process based on statute. And it was interesting as we were going around and presenting to the community, things like this came up. And it provided an opportunity to educate. Mr. Johnson, do you know the timing of the performance audit?
Actually, I can answer that for you.
Sorry, Nick.
No, you're fine.
Sorry.
So it's actually being completed right now. We're hoping to get the final results within the next 2 weeks or so.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's hiding.
I was looking around. Mr.
He's strategically located behind the pole.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yes, so the annual audit for the capital SPLOST is being finalized right now by our outside audit firm, and we should have the results hopefully within the next 2 weeks or so.
So the good news is that'll correspond well with the spring update. So,
and I can say, as of now, there are no audit issues
right
that they've communicated to us.
Awesome. The other question I had, we don't anticipate needing bonds at all for this because we're moving into a new era where we're dealing with more maintenance, no heavy upfront lifts on major capital projects. But we did have language in case we do need that, right? So we prepared in advance, so we're covered no matter what we need to do, right? Is that my understanding?
That is correct. It was included in the referendum. That language was included, but you are correct. Our intent is to move forward with a pay-go approach, so we're not incurring debt.
Right, great. Okay, thanks, appreciate the update.
So I just have one quick question in the interest of time. We do a great job including the community in a lot of what we do. Is there any desire to include the community in any discussion in terms of how we're going to be spending this next round of eSplost funds? I know you all do a good job of looking at how we're going to allocate our funds. Is there any sort of listening sessions in terms of feedback and looking at different parts of the district on where resources need to be allocated more? I know we have a kind of a fairness schedule that we have to allocate towards for each schools, but is there any desire to do that?
It's an interesting question, and thank you for that question. A lot of the needs are identified right now using data that we have available. So we always listen to our communities. I think that's why we have the annual, one of the benefits, let me say it this way, of the annual process is we will hear from our communities each year about issues that are out there. I will say, as we move forward even into the next planning cycle, that is something we really, that's an opportunity for us to incorporate within the planning process.
The question I have is, thank you for your report, and is the outdoor facilities review data report that we have, and it's quite comprehensive, and we do appreciate the work that's been done to be able to provide us with this information, and this is specifically related to an equity audit around our facilities. And I see some gaps around some of the needs that we need to invest in. And can you talk a bit about how you're going to use this specific report to then make those investments around eSplost to then, at the very minimum, close the gaps around the schools that have identified as do not meet? But also there are some other things that, like, I know of that I've seen that's not indicated here in the report that I'm also curious about, because it's not here. But I know I'm not crazy. I've gone to these schools and I've seen some disparities too around some of the facilities that's not really indicated here. So I also have some wonderings around that as well.
Do you want to chime in?
Sure. I just wanted to remind the board that we had a three-phase approach. The first phase was to give you the raw data, We had told the board that by today, November 20th, we would have a summary of the raw data to give you more specific information, and we have that prepared in notebooks for you. We plan to send that out to you after the vacation, but we, as of today, met our timeline. And then in the third phase was to create what I had called a priority framework for Patrick Burke and Masana to put it in priority and to put it into the budget, those things that we can and could do based on the information. So we're right on line with that, as I made mention to you. So I'm not saying, Patrick, you may have other things to add, but I just want to remind us of the three-phase approach that we agreed to do, and we are right on time. This morning, we completed those notebooks. They're ready for you. Again, I'm going to hold them strategically until after vacation to give you guys some time, and then we will kick into phase 3, which is to give that over to Patrick and Masana for them to put this priority framework into effect.
And I might add, some of the items are things that should be met with existing processes. So there are items identified within that report that should be addressed immediately because they're just a part of how we respond to the needs of schools. Some of the items are in the current capital plan, some are in the future, so would be prioritized accordingly. And then some of them will have to identify what is the path forward within the next capital plan. But absolutely, we're looking at that data.
Thank you for the report, Mr. Burke, and to the team, the district staff that really supported with East Blossom communicating the importance of it, the value of it. I commend our community for coming out to vote in the way that they did. We exceeded expectations in turnout. Again, as a educational organization, we teach students about civic responsibility, and so I really appreciate our Gwinnett County residents for coming out and voting and showing how much they care about the education of our students and making sure that we're continuing to provide the facilities and the environment that is most conducive to learning by way of committing to East Blossom dollars for another 5 years. So thank you to the communications team and to Interim Superintendent Al Taylor and the staff for getting out and engaging across the district with so many different audiences. The fact that the vote passed in all 156 precincts just confirms and cements for me that we have a community that cares about education. And I'm proud to be a part of that community and to be on a school board where we know our residents care about the education of our students. So thank you for that. I do want to also double down on the transparent tool that your team put up where our stakeholders can go online to see how we have spent SPLOST dollars previously. We also have posted how we're going to spend these SPLOST dollars that were just approved. That information is readily available, and I appreciate you all making it accessible because as a board member, I can and I have directed concerned citizens to that site, and we are able to talk about proposed plans. To Mr. Gasper's point, I would love to, in the future, think through how we can engage the community more in what those plans are. Yes. I feel like it was just kind of established, so I would love to be able to see more collaboration, more collaborative discussions with community around what that looks like, and I know that this is a bad word, but redistricting and thinking about how we're going to address overcrowding, I think that's going to be very important as you all think about providing us an East Blossom update. I think you said in the spring. I, for one, am going to be interested in how we're going to address overcrowding over the next 5 years. That's not specifically called out in the East Blossom plan, but it is an ongoing issue and concern. I believe that as a district, we have neglected some areas to the point of having 80 trailers in some of our clusters. And maybe that's because security wasn't as much of a concern, but we know it's a concern now. And so it is a priority that our parents have expressed when it comes to budgeting. They want their students to feel safe. And so a part of that for me is getting students inside the schoolhouse and out of trailers where we have more secure environments. So I look forward to the update, as well as how the district is planning to start addressing the overcrowding that we're seeing in many, many pockets of our community. Thank you so much.
No, thank you.
Dr. Taylor?
Thank you, Mr. Johnson and Mr. Burke. We will now have Mr. Gomez, Chief of Staff, and Dr. David Goldie, Legislative and Policy Administrator, provide a legislative and policy update. Dr. Goldie.
Okay. All right. Good afternoon, Chairwoman Dr. Simmons, board members, and Dr. Taylor. This month, we bring 2 policies under new business. The first policy is Policy IDDG, Multilingual Learners. This new policy was crafted by the board's policy committee, and we are recommended that this be laid on the table till the December 18th board meeting. I'll pause there in case there's any questions or comments on that particular policy.
Oh, board members, questions, comments?
I wanted to thank, in the interest of time, I just want to quickly thank all our policy committee members and our school system, and also working with our national policy expert, Mr. Ben Cleben, Mr. Gomez and his team. We have Dr. Valentine, Dr. Katana Harris, like you all, we deeply appreciate the time and commitment you all made. And just shout out to our committee members who they went to the International Transition Center, International Newcomer Center, the INC, and they toured it. They got an understanding around the process for how we are engaging our newcomers, our families who are coming to Gwinnett County Public Schools. And it was just such an amazing experience for our school system to be able to allow and facilitate that learning of our committee members. We know that our committee members are not just people who are sitting discussing policy that we can certainly do in-house, but it's more than just that. The meaning of this committee really is about engaging community members who are leaders and who are ambassadors of the work we do, ambassadors of our policies, ambassadors of how we can continue to make a difference in our communities. And certainly them visiting the INC Center was part of that process. So we look forward to continuously engaging them. And now we're moving on to the budget policy, and that is going to be, again, another session of learning about GCPS budgets. And I appreciate Ms. Millard and her team, who's going to be providing the educational session for the policy committee members for that. But just wanted to shout out to all the policy committee members. Thank you. We appreciate you all in GCPS. Thank you.
I do want to commend Dr. Therese and Ms. Stone for leading the work with our new policy committee. I know it wasn't always easy. There were some lessons learned along the way, but for us to have a policy presented this month, I know you all wanted to get to us quicker, but I feel like you've accomplished a huge milestone in getting this to us, and the level of engagement that you facilitated, not just with the committee, but with our district staff in planning the INC visit. I had a chance to go visit as well. I do truly feel that the level of engagement that you facilitated has created even more champions for GCPS. We have policy committee members that are now able to go out into the community and share information around the status of our school district and where we're heading. So I commend you all for the hard work there, along with Ben Cleben in getting this policy to us for review. So thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Okay. Great, thank you. And the second policy is also a new policy. This is policy JCDAF, use of electronic devices by students. This policy was created in compliance with House Bill 340 that was passed during the 2025 session. It required boards to adopt a policy with regards to cell phone access by January the 1st, 2026. Although the implementation is not required until July the 1st, 2026. So I'll pause in case there's questions or comments on that. new policy.
Team, questions, comments? All right,
Okay.
thank you.
All right, the final item, legislative priorities 2026. If I can remind the board that we presented a draft set of priorities at the October board meeting and requested feedback. On Tuesday of this week, we provided you an update that incorporated any received feedback plus the finalized and confirmed GCPS by the numbers. So that was sent to the board on Tuesday. On Wednesday, yesterday, we received additional feedback, which was emailed to the board this morning, and I believe you have a hard copy on your desk in front of you. So we're in the posture of looking to the board for direction on how you wish to move forward with these priorities based on the additional feedback.
Well, I think you just mentioned that we received additional feedback this morning.
Yes.
So what information are you wanting from us today in this moment?
So the draft that we sent out on Tuesday, the board has several options, and Mr. Gomez can correct me if I'm wrong with any of this. The board can go ahead and approve the current priorities, or the board can delay the approval of those priorities until the December meeting to allow board members time to go through the additional feedback that we've received with a view to approving a final list of priorities in December.
Okay, thank you for the options.
You're welcome.
Board members, I don't know if you had a chance to review the feedback, but I open up for any discussion here.
I suggest for us to wait until December, as I think there's some additional things here that we can consider, and I think the time would be helpful.
And I echo Dr. Teresa's Johnson Morgan's sentiments around delaying this to December, given the feedback, the additional feedback. I also have some notes, particularly around tax reforms and our funding. So our last two legislative priorities.
Okay. Yep, thank you.
Okay, so it sounds like, any other comments here? Okay, it sounds like there's support for delaying the decision. I believe you all are going to want us to approve the final draft at our next board meeting in December, is that correct?
That would-
Okay,
yeah, that
so
would be
I
ideal.
will ask that all board members submit any additional input. By when do you all need that information to get it to us in a timely manner?
Be great. Why don't we agree when we come back? I say that Tuesday, I believe, is December 2nd-ish. So if we can have it by that Tuesday, that will give us a couple days to resend it back out to you guys, see if we have an agreement on that, so when we come back in December, we have a document that we can agree on.
All right, does that work for the team? Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. That concludes the presentation. Thank you, Dr. Taylor.
I just had a comment about the policies, and I want to encourage our community members to know that they can provide comments on all of our policies, whether you are part of the policy committee or not. It is open for our students, our teachers, our families, our school system, ESPs, everyone. You all have the opportunity to review our policies that are on the table and make some suggestions and comments. And I just want to shout out to people who have particular experience around the multilingual community and multilingual learning to please review that multilingual policy that is on the table and provide some specific feedback and suggestions on how we can make that better, in particular the people who have boots on the ground around multilingual learners. We really need your support, your feedback, and your engagement around the MLL policy. Thank you.
So one last thing, as we did have on the night meeting agenda, I believe, the verbiage to approve the legislative priorities this evening. So, Mr. Pereira, it's a question for you. We're not going to do that this evening. Does that mean we need to amend the agenda or simply get to that item and postpone that item?
I don't think you need to amend the agenda. I think you take a vote on it and you can just table it until the next meeting would probably be the most efficient way to handle it this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Gomez and Dr. Goldie. We'll now have Jay Nebel, Interim Chief of Schools, provide an update on the 2026-27 and 2027-28 calendars. Mr. Nebel.
All right, thank you, Dr. Taylor. Chairperson, Dr. Simmons, members of the board, Dr. Taylor, good afternoon. Today, our goal is to review the process and the data that inform the development of the 26-27 and 27-28 school calendars, and to share key features that will define them. There we go. All right, I want to begin with a quick review of the calendar feedback survey design. Our survey window was open from September 8th to October 8th, and to ensure a process that was inclusive of all stakeholders, the survey engaged students in grades K through 12, parents, staff, and our community members. The survey was accessible via multiple platforms: our student portal, Parent Square, the GCPS website, and also our local schools promoted this to the local school communities. In recognition of our diversity, translations of the survey into multiple languages ensured inclusivity and accommodated our multicultural community. Comprehensive feedback collection was a priority. The survey allowed multiple role selections and open-ended answers to capture varied community perspectives. In response to the design efforts, we witnessed a robust community response. Calendar feedback survey participation totaled over 44,000 respondents. As noted in the graphic in front of you, the largest group of participants was our parents, followed by our staff, our students, and then a group of adults who identified themselves as future GCPS parents. As part of our calendar feedback survey process, participants identified the potential calendar features you see on the screen that were most important to them. Our goal here was not to have people simply cast a vote, but to help us determine our community's preferences. We also included 4 sample calendars to illustrate how these features would appear in practice. The next 2 slides will show the preferred features identified by stakeholders, first from adults, then from students. You will notice a strong alignment between the 2 groups. Both identified the same 4 features as their most preferred. The preferred calendar features of our adult stakeholders are shown on the graph in front of you now. From the bottom up, the most preferred features among our adults were the length of breaks, the ending date of the school year, focus on digital learning days, and a conversation around the inclusion of religious and cultural holidays. Student priorities, shown on the screen now, mirrored those of us adults. First, length of breaks, followed by the ending date of the school year, a focus on digital learning days, and a conversation around religious and cultural holidays. Next, we recognized that ranking features and providing sample calendars did not give stakeholders the chance to fully share their perspectives. To address this, we invited additional comments and then analyzed stakeholder feedback. From this analysis, several key themes emerged. Both adults and students emphasized the importance of breaks, clear start and end dates, consideration of cultural holidays and digital learning days. Adults also highlighted the need for sufficient teacher planning time. It is important to note that the order of these themes represents frequency with which they were identified in stakeholder comments, not necessarily the sentiment around them. Our next 2 slides will provide you with some examples of the feedback provided around these themes. First, let's orient ourselves to the chart that you see. On the left side of the chart, you'll note a calendar feature. Moving across to the right, you'll find examples of feedback from students and then from adults. On the topic of length of breaks, students indicated that they wanted extended breaks during the school year, particularly in the fall and spring, and a reduction in workload, or DLD days, to allow for meaningful rest and travel opportunities. And while some adults expressed interest in shorter breaks, the overwhelming majority favored week-long breaks to allow for family time, travel, and opportunities to connect with relatives. Staff members also noted that extended breaks would positively impact staff morale. School start and end dates. A prevailing theme among students was for us to avoid Monday starts to the school year and then to end the school year as soon as possible. It's clear that our students enjoy their summertime. Adult feedback included occasional requests for a later start date. However, the dominant theme was a strong preference against starting school on a Monday. Stakeholders favored a midweek or staggered start to ease the transition from summer break back to school for students, family, and staff. Digital learning days. Feedback on digital learning days from both adults and students showed similarities. Supporters of digital learning days noted that they provide flexibility and offer potential for real-world, work-from-home learning experiences for our students. However, there was considerable opposition to DLDs from both groups. Many expressed that they believe that DLDs disrupt their learning, and they strongly preferred in-person instruction to maintain engagement, academic quality, and consistency in instruction. Another persistent concern expressed about DLDs was that they create childcare and cost challenges for many of our families, and that perhaps they no longer serve a meaningful purpose in a post-COVID context. The inclusion of religious or cultural holidays. From both our student and our adult stakeholders, there was an expressed desire for the exclusion of major religious holidays. The remarkable, expansive diversity of Gwinnett County Public Schools was fully evident in the comments regarding religious and cultural holidays. Both students and adults requested adding holidays well beyond the 4 that were included in the sample calendar, including, but not limited to, Orthodox Christmas, Lunar New Year, Ash Wednesday, VSAC, and other cultural and national observances that reflect the diverse backgrounds of our students and families. Teacher planning and pre-planning. The responses to this feature came primarily from our adult stakeholders. Support for extended and well-structured pre-planning time was evident. There was staff feedback expressing value for having 5 pre-planning days, opposed to the 7 that we've been experiencing in recent years. And there were also repeated requests to begin pre-planning on a Monday rather than midweek, allowing an extra weekend for staff to spend with their families before they returned to school. Survey feedback also included multiple requests for us to compare our calendar with those of neighboring districts. We did so, and among our findings was that most metro districts schedule 4 to 5 pre-planning days, while we provide 7, as does Forsyth County. This extra time helps school leaders and staff prepare for the year ahead, but also will allow us the potential to offer a full week for fall break for both students and staff, something many districts cannot do, as they require staff to work during fall or midwinter breaks to meet the demands of a 190-day work calendar. It's also important to remember, as we view this slide, that we remain committed to a 180-day student calendar, which we believe is critical for closing achievement gaps and maintaining consistent instruction. While some metro districts have reduced student days for flexibility in scheduling, we have made a decision to not compromise the number of days our students are in classrooms. Finally, other districts do offer midwinter breaks in February. We've aligned with that practice, and this will be reflected in the calendars that we publish. With this feedback in mind, significant components of our 26 through 28 school calendars include the following: 7 pre-planning days, starting on a Monday to allow our staff a full final week of summer. The first day of school will be on the first Wednesday in August, allowing a shortened week at the outset of the school year. And the last day of school will continue to be on the Wednesday prior to Memorial Day. To the topic of breaks, we will provide a 1-week fall break in October for both our staff and students. We'll continue to maintain a 1-week break in November for Thanksgiving. And while it's not listed here, we will obviously maintain our winter break between semesters. We will continue to provide a 3-day break in February for both our staff and students, and our customary week off for spring break in April. You will note a reduction in the number of digital learning days on these calendars. 1 digital learning day will take place in September and another in March. Additionally, next year, there will be an additional DLD in November on Election Day. To summarize, throughout this calendar development process, the most consistent feedback from employees, parents, students, and community members focused on extending breaks, reducing digital learning days, and adjusting start dates for both our families, students, and staff. While some stakeholders supported adding religious and cultural holidays, others raised concerns about the challenges and the impact this could have on existing breaks and the increased cost of childcare needs for some of our families. These competing priorities made adding additional holidays difficult without creating significant disruption. It's important to note that we also remain committed to our core belief that equity benefits all. In a county as richly diverse as ours, selecting certain holidays over others could possibly create a perception of inequity. And with this in mind, we ensure that well-intended efforts to include some do not unintentionally lead to feelings of exclusion for others. In closing, adjusting the school calendar is a very complex process that requires balancing multiple community desires and expectations. We've attempted to couple the stakeholder feedback that we reviewed with you today with key considerations we've always upheld. A week off for Thanksgiving, ensuring that the first semester ends before winter break, finishing the school year by Memorial Day, and maintaining a 180-day student calendar to support student achievement, gap closure, and consistency. These principles and stakeholder feedback guided the development of the calendars presented today. I appreciate your attention this afternoon. Please let me know if you have questions.
Board members, please share any questions or comments at this time.
I see that we are behind schedule, so I will submit my questions to you via email.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you. I want to just briefly share, and since I've been on the board, I've been advocating for an inclusive calendar. We also understand that the majority of the population responding to the surveys are majority Christian. I wonder if we disaggregate the data and if we looked at the Asian population and the Muslim population, what that would look like around how they would like those observations around a more inclusive calendar. I do believe having an inclusive calendar for our school system, being that Gwinnett County is one of the most diverse counties in the nation, would reflect the needs of our community and will reflect belonging. I did hear what you said about equity, and I think when we think about equity, it is a yes, both and. It is a how do we really look at, meeting the needs of our population that's not just centralized on the Christian focus, but also other major religious holidays. It is not saying that you have to take every holiday, because if you think about the Jewish calendar, you'll be off every month almost, right? Mm-hmm. So that's not realistic, but really when you think about some of these major holidays for our Muslim, our Jewish, or our Asian community, there are major holidays that they can tell you that certainly would be valuable. And so I do think that when we talk about creating a culture of belonging and equity, it's not an exclusion of their holidays, but it's how do we do a yes, both and I believe that where there's a will, there's a way. And I think that we continue to maintain a status quo calendar of creating excuses around challenges of why we can't have an inclusive calendar. I think that we use the data as a way to say, okay, well, people didn't vote for it, but we know with the majority of the population who are Christian may not vote for it. But if the data is disaggregated and you look at that, you will probably see the reverse around the majority of the people who are non-Christian would probably vote for it. I do want to highlight, and I've shared this before over the years, there are certain school systems that have inclusive calendars, including New York City Public Schools, Montgomery County Public Schools, Howard County, in Maryland, Lexington, Guilderland. There are several school systems across our nation who have inclusive calendars while also meeting the requirements around the 180 days. And so I do think, again, where there's a will, there's a way. I think that we can do better in this area, and I've always and will always say that I believe that we don't have an inclusive calendar, and we should. And I want to also say that this is not the decision of the board. This is a decision that is an operational decision that is made by Dr. Taylor, who is the interim superintendent, and his team. And the board, really, we don't have a vote on this, but I do feel like it's important for me, being hearing voices of different community members, also being Jewish, also understanding and being connected to our Muslim community, our Asian community, and hearing their voices, that there is a need for us to have a more inclusive calendar. And I just, I hope that one day, this county can reflect that in our calendar while, yes, both and, ensuring that we're meeting the DLD, ensuring that we're addressing all of those other issues. I think we can do it. I do think, though, it maybe requires some innovation and some different thought processes around how we can make that happen. But where there's a will, there's a way.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
I just have to step in on the other side. I support everything that you and your team do, and you said it on the back of your conversation. This is an incredibly complex process of setting our calendars, and we absolutely can support everything that Dr. Teresa is saying. It would just extend our closing date of our school year. We can have days off. I support the 180 days calendar year that GCPS does. You said other metro school systems have backed off the 180 days in just to create flexibility. I don't support that. I think it having 180 days in the classroom supports our strive towards learning excellence, towards equity for all. And I think that there are a lot of reasons why we put excused absences in the system to allow for religious, to allow for religious equities. To have, I'm a Catholic, and I, pull my kids out of school for Ash Wednesday, for Good Friday to go to church. Those are excused absences. We don't get them off as Catholics. So I support that the district's doing. I also support the surveys that the parents gave and that the parents responded to. And I think you and your team did a very good job looking at this complex process and looking at the survey results that the parents wanted the calendar years set up the way they did. They wanted their long breaks. They wanted holidays as well. So again, on the backside, I support the complex work that you all do. I also support holidays on the calendar, but we also have to look at the big picture, and the parents have spoken, and you guys did great work. So thank you for what you did.
Thanks, sir.
Yeah, I would just echo that as well. I think y'all did a great job of soliciting feedback and expanded, and the explanations, the buckets available, and came back with a consistent finding that we've had year over year since I've been on the board. And I would also say that, again, having witnessed over the last 4 to 5 decades the removal of identifying religious holidays, the most equitable way that we move forward is to provide an excused absence and say to anyone, if your faith is important and you want to take that time off, it's an excused absence. Like anything, you make up the work, and everyone's in the same boat. And so no one here is trying to determine what holidays are more important, what high holy days are more important. That's up to you. That's an individual decision. But as a school district, based upon the wishes of our stakeholders, and I think impact on students and staff, which you've covered in great detail, we've struck a very good balance. And so for that, I applaud your efforts.
Thank you.
Thank you for the hard work.
Yes, ma'am.
I acknowledge and appreciate that you share the complexity around putting the calendar together. I also want to uplift that we always should strive to do what's in the best interest of students. As we continue to think through how the calendar might shape up in the future, I'm really interested in, are we really doing what's best for students with where we're landing? I've heard and received feedback around students not or having conflicts around milestones testing because of religious conflicts and sacred times around that time of year. So again, are we really doing what's in the best interest of students the way the calendar is currently laid out and presented? There's also been, feedback around when you have longer summer breaks, that opportunity for students to lose, learning time. Are we doing what's in the best interest of students? I know that on the one hand, there's what we've always done, and that's easy to maintain. On the other hand, it may be, well, actually, maybe we should consider something else because it's in the best interest of students. Is that going to be more complex? Yes. Is the answer going to be clear? No. But it is something that, if it's best for students, I think it should be an endeavor that the district commits to making. As Dr. Therese shared, the board does not approve this calendar. I appreciate all the work that was put into it. I'm also thinking about, and I've shared this with Dr. Taylor, just our staff, and how at the end of the year currently, our graduations roll into Memorial Day. And I do feel that our staff are somewhat penalized for having to attend graduations on Memorial Day and into the weekend. So I'll continue to advocate for staff well-being and consideration as we're thinking through our calendars and planning graduations at the end of the year.
Yes,
Dr.
ma'am.
Taylor?
May I? So I do want to make a comment to your belief that I share, that it's incumbent on us to do what's best by our students. And while religious holidays are not embedded in this calendar, it's incumbent on us to make sure that we honor diversity through culturally responsive instruction, through our classroom practices, making sure that we don't make missteps as you described in the past when Milestones was offered at a period of time where kids were fasting. So these are things that we can control through our classroom instruction, through our daily practice, while we may not have the holidays embedded in the calendar. Also, an update on graduation. In the coming year, well, this will be released tomorrow, we'll see a graduation schedule similar to what we had last year. We're kind of tied to that for one more year because we don't have availability at Gas South Arena, nor do we have the ability to have another arena in Gwinnett County large enough to house the graduations. We are excited, though, that in years moving ahead past that, we'll be able to accommodate the request that you just made and move our graduations off of Memorial Day weekend.
Well, thank you for that feedback, and I'm sure our teachers will appreciate being able to spend that holiday with their families as other people are allowed to do. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Dr. Taylor?
I also have a wondering, and I know you can't answer this right now, I just want to throw this out here, just hearing from a lot of our Muslim community around the need for cultural competency, and not just our Muslim community. I think we have a need and a gap around addressing understanding the nuances around culture and cultural competency with our teachers and staff, really understanding those needs. And in particular, when it comes to, since we have this calendar that y'all have approved that isn't inclusive of like some of the major holidays, I'm also wondering how do you then navigate really respecting the cultures, in particular when you have a need for spaces around Ramadan for our students and our staff members, to be able to engage in that. I also hear the need for not having testing and major assignments due during high holy days, Jewish, Muslim, or even Lunar New Year. And so, like, how do we navigate those, since you all have decided on this calendar that isn't inclusive, but what can we do to make sure that there's some cultural respect and honor around those people who may be attending school, especially during Ramadan and other major holidays?
Yes, ma'am. There's certainly room for improvement, Dr. Treese, in that realm. I'm committed to continuing to work with our schools to make sure that they're aware of and then responsive to the needs of each of the students in our building.
Can you share some specific ideas, not now, I know we have time, but in a report or something, specifically what you will do? Because we have gotten feedback that in particular, in certain areas where there are high Muslim populations, that they have not gotten what they needed. And now that we don't have an inclusive calendar where they can, like, honor certain days, what can we do specifically? And I think that needs to be more integrated around cultural competency and some really intentional learning around how do we respect those cultures, especially during those times that they're celebrating their high holy days.
Yes, ma'am. I'm aware of those concerns as well, and I'll absolutely provide you that update. Thank you.
The last comment I'll make is the fact that we committed to sharing all of our information on our website in the 5 languages most spoken in our district. I think that when we provide accommodations like that and we recognize these are the top 5, let's provide support. This doesn't represent all the languages because we have over 100 and I don't know if it's 40, but we identify the top 5. If we can do something like that when it comes to communication, I want to encourage our district to start thinking outside the box in terms of how we can be just as thoughtful and strategic around our calendaring. So, Dr. Taylor.
Thank you, Dr. Simmons. So we are at time, so maybe I'll frame what we need to get accomplished, and then you can share with me how you want to proceed. So really quickly, wanted to just share for next month, we'll be doing the XFAT presentations and a GEMS update. But I wanted to also see if you had any questions about the business item, I'm assuming the business meeting, any agenda items?
We really don't have any time, huh? We're out of time, essentially.
Well, so we have until 3:50
Okay.
to do that's when the TAC. So what's supposed to happen was you're supposed to have a chance to kind of talk through what you want to do with the work session and business meeting. And then we were going to go through executive session to do the appeals, the legal update.
Right.
And the HR report. My evaluation would be the second executive session that's listed after TAC. So those are the things that were supposed to happen until 3:50.
Okay. So, board, any comments or feedback around the anticipated work session presentations?
Or the business meeting agenda items for tonight.
Okay.
All right.
No feedback
So
there?
do you want to take maybe we can do 10 minutes or so if you want to have a discussion about the work session and business meeting proposal to separate those on separate days. The reason we want you to have a chance to talk about it at least some degree, we have to vote on it next month to be published. And we would need a chance to kind of create an iteration of what it might look like if that's something that you want us to go ahead and move forward with.
So just as a quick reminder, there was the discussion previously around possibly breaking up our work session from our board meetings, breaking that up across 2 days instead of one. The district did provide us with some metrics around viewership of recordings. The benefit was shared, perhaps more stakeholders would come out and engage and attend meetings because it's after work hours. And so at this time, I just wanted to open up for the team to discuss your thoughts on the matter and how we might plan to move forward. We will have to vote next month on how we'll proceed. So I'll open it up for the team for discussion.
I support breaking up our board meetings into 2 meetings. I've been looking through some of the feedback provided by the district. What I see are metrics around who's watching our meetings and when, so who's watching our 2 p.m. meetings and who is watching our 7 p.m. business meeting. And then I'm also looking at the analysis as far as efficiency and time management. I know some of our neighbors have split their board meetings up into, not all of them, not all of our neighbors, but some of our neighbors have split their board meetings up into 2 days to allow for stakeholders to attend meetings. So some of their work sessions start at 5 p.m. versus the 2 p.m. And the reason why it helps with work schedules, especially for stakeholders who work from 9 to 5, so they're able to attend our work sessions. What I would like to see that I do not think that I saw is with the metrics of all the data and the listening, and which I appreciate the district pulling that information for us today. What I did not see was more stakeholder feedback in this decision. Did we engage the community to break up our board meetings into 2 meetings? So I guess that's my first question.
Okay, we were responding to the request from the board, so we have not engaged the community to see if that was something that they would be interested in. That's certainly something if, today you decide we want to move forward, then we can maybe create a structure similar to what we do with putting the policy on the table for 30 days to gather some feedback. But no, we have not directly engaged to see if this was something that was of interest to the community.
Okay, thank you. And my second thing is, one of the things that I'm noting is the analysis. So for folks who may not know, who might be watching, and our board meetings they run about 8 hours, one time per month. And one of the things that I'm noting and I resonate with, the long meetings can cause fatigue, which lowers concentration. Another thing that I noted is that if we break it down to 2 3-hour meetings, and I've only heard great things from my neighbors around breaking up the meetings, is that it makes it more accessible. People can attend at least one. It's easier for staff and media to fully to cover. And as I looked through the metrics, I didn't see a real difference as far as streaming. And one thing I will note is that our meetings are archived as well. And this plan to break it up into 2 3-hour meetings also works for this board member who also is a member of the working class and trying to get support from employers. And I think I've shared this story, but when I ran for this seat, I was full-time employed. I had the support of my employer. And then shortly after winning my election, I was terminated. And it's been 15 months of unemployment full-time because employers feel that they will not support an employee who's an elected official, but separate issue, but also an employee who needs to take one Thursday per month off when standard business hours are 9 to 5 p.m. So those are my remarks to 3 things that I have.
Thank you, Ms. Stone. I want to share personally, I like the one day taking off. It's very convenient for me, and when I did have the opportunity and the support from an employer, it really facilitated my scheduling. However, I do think that just because it's comfortable for me and easy for me, it doesn't mean that it's the right thing. And I think the right thing for our school board, as we are right now engaging with people who are working full-day schedules, people who do have challenges that I might not have, but just because I don't have that challenge doesn't mean that I can't support what you need. And I also think that when we think about beyond ourselves and we think about the future of the board, and people who could potentially be interested in this, maybe that one full day may be a deterrent for some of them. And so I do believe that thinking outside of ourselves and really looking at what is the opportunity potentially for other people who want to run for board seat, I do think it's important for us to have that type of flexibility where they can still work and attend a school board meeting at a later time. That might be a little bit more easier for them to navigate their schedules. So I support that. And I think that this is also an example of some of the other opportunities we have around meeting the needs of school board members in particular in these times. And I mean that from a perspective around pay and also around just insurance. And we have teachers and ESPs and people around our community who've had an increase in insurance rates, but for some of our board members, we have a 950% increase in insurance. And that's also, to me, another barrier that I think could be, that could deter people. And so I just want to say that, like, in the broader scheme, I do support the need of meeting the needs of our board members, and I support splitting it for 2 days.
So I'm grateful for the data that we did receive as a board from our interim superintendent around the viewership of our work sessions in accordance with having our current meeting on a single day out of the month. And although it's not significant, part of the information that was shared with us was also a financial component. And splitting up the meetings into 2 days will create an additional financial spend of the district to have additional staff here, depending upon the time of the meetings when we do split them up. If we keep them during normal business hours, obviously that's one component, but if we move the work session to later in the evening, there's a different component of after-hours spend with staff and then with SROs as well. So being in in the current climate that we're in with spend and being cognizant of where our monies are going, that's something that is of high consideration of me personally, is spending extra dollars on something where right now, of us having the meeting on one day, we're able to control that as a single spend. Obviously, in support of hearing from the community, hearing from teachers that might want to participate in person to be part of our work sessions, to be able to come to our board meetings, which of course start at 7 o'clock, well after working hours in the classroom, can certainly attend. All of our work sessions are streamed live on our website. They're archived to go back to watch the recording. That data was provided to us. The streams, that data is provided, and there are a lot of watches and streams that are recorded. So people are watching, and they're catching us in our sessions, which is good. They want to know what's going on here. So I'm on the side of keeping it to one day, and I can always be flexible to the needs of my fellow board members, but I would like to continue to keep it in one day and would support that as well. And again, that's my position on it.
I have a question, Dr. Taylor. Do we have such a thing as flex time for our staff? So to Mr. Gasper's point around additional cost, how can we innovatively think outside of the box around navigating those costs in a way that provides some flex time for staff members to then avoid the cost related to having a meeting that's split?
Yeah, so I'm certainly, we could look at to see who's impacted. There are some individuals who, custodial classified staff are obviously going to, maybe that looks a little bit differently for them. Then, of course, you just have the regular ancillary cost of utilities and such like that. So there would be an increase. I think what we probably need to do is go back and look at specifically how much we can anticipate the increase is, and I'm not certain we got as granular and detailed in that, but we can take a look at that.
I appreciate the work that's been put into. I've been in favor of the single workday. I think if in January when we set our calendar, if it's not the third Thursday, most of us have to leave home about 1:30 to get here. So it's 3 hours to plan for. Everyone who has to participate on an ongoing basis on our staff know what their responsibility is, what they have to plan for. So I think I'm in favor of the single day. There's a lot of things that we are required to do. The work session, the monthly board meeting are at the top of that list. There's a ton, as you all know, of things we want to do. Principal for a day, that's a want to. Going to our schools from time to time to see, walk the halls, those are all things we want to do and we can plan for. This is something that I think based upon the analysis that's been done, I think it makes sense to keep the single day and just to plan in advance. That's what I do. I flew in on the red eye last night from San Francisco, landed at 4:30 this morning to be here for this meeting. And to be here, I could have flown in, probably landed at 1:30 or 2, come in late for the work session, but I didn't because I need to be here. So I'm a little tired, but I did what I needed to do to support my role as a board member. And I find it, for me, just much easier, and I think for most people involved, much easier to schedule around that one absolutely critical day of the month and plan accordingly on the workload that I have that goes with it. So those are my thoughts.
Certainly, to be able to take off from a job once a month is a privilege. And it's been a privilege that board members to date have been able to exercise. Ms. Stone's constituents voted for her to sit in that seat. I think about board members to come after us, and perhaps they're a teacher, and would that teacher's principal allow them the privilege of leaving their classroom once a month? I don't think so. So for me, this is an issue of removing barriers so that people can serve. People that have been elected to the seat can serve. Do I appreciate coming once a month and kind of getting it done? It's been a privilege, but am I willing to forego that privilege so that those who were elected to serve can show up and do what they were elected to do? I do support it. Do I think about the Dr. Simmons to come after me, the Ms. Stone to come after me, the Mr. Gasper to come after he? Do I think about those people and what role they may play in their organizations and whether or not they'll have that privilege? It is something that we're being forced to think about. And so I do support removing barriers, whether it's for students, whether it's for elected officials. We don't have the privilege of having legislation put in place to protect our jobs like our state delegates. We don't have that privilege. We don't have statutes in place to protect our jobs. And so if it's a matter of I've been elected to fulfill a role, and how can I fulfill that responsibility? If it means breaking up the meeting into 2 evenings, it is something that I would like us to further consider. So that's my feedback.
All right, so I'm hearing that seems like there's consensus to explore. One clarifying question, and maybe we can do 2 models of what it looks like with the same week, because I know that was another piece of discussion. In the same week or in opposite weeks or later, so we can maybe create a couple different versions of what it might look like, unless there's consensus around, should we be trying to schedule these during the same week, or is there a preference?
I think there was conversation about having it in the same week. I think Mr. Knudsen actually suggested the same week as a convenience for him, if so it was to be split up. So I do think that looking into that, I do highly encourage our school system to really go outside of what's comfortable and what's status quo, because I feel like that keeps us kind of stuck in some areas where we continue to maintain barriers and maintain gaps. And in order for us to really close the opportunity gaps, and opportunity gaps in this case is around our board members being able to fully participate, and also recognizing the nuances around some board members that have some societal barriers that are impeding how we are navigating even on this board and outside of this board in our own professional lives and in job and employment situations and healthcare and access. And so I do think that when we can look outside of the box and figure out how can we support our board members, I think that's really important. We as board members advocate for community. We fight for our constituents. But who's there fighting for us? Who's there making sure that we can then support our community to do the best job that we can do? And we need Ms. Stone active and engaged on this board. And she's going to be doing great work. And it's important that whatever work she's doing, that expertise can also help us and elevate our board and elevate our community. So I do think that it's important for us to think creatively outside of the box, and how do we remove the barriers for board members? And that's equity too, and that's equity in action also for our board members.
You got what you need?
I would just add one more thing. I mean, when I was asked to run for this position, I asked a lot of key questions around the responsibilities associated with this and what was required of it. And I ran based upon that. There's an old proverb that says, what man sets out to build a tower to only get halfway through it and run out of money and be a fool? So if you haven't looked into what it takes to serve on this board, I remember 6 months in, I talked to Mr. Seckinger, who recruited me to run for his position. And I said, Dan, that's the biggest bait and switch I've ever heard of. I am constantly at, and he goes, no. I told you, you could do something every night of the week when you serve on the Board of Education in Gwinnett County Public Schools. But here's what, when you look at what's required, the things you have to do, it's manageable. And so at the same time you're saying we're going to create a new scenario for some people and provide and remove barriers, you actually are in potentially creating barriers for other people who could operate on a single day, work session and board session. So I just think that, we have to look at, count the costs, do what we did, and so from that perspective, I'm not saying that we don't end up in a dual meeting scenario. I just think there's a lot more to it, and I think it comes down to more than just the convenience of the board. And I think that if you choose to serve in public office, you better check your boxes before you do that, because it's a choice. And if that choice infringes on your ability to provide for your family and do the things that you need to do, then maybe serving in public office isn't for you. So those are just conversations that you have to have with yourself before you step into this situation, as opposed to getting into it and then saying, I need an accommodation. And I think we do everything that we can to help our stakeholders have access to the information that we're providing for them. And so we can continue to discuss it. I just think it's important that we don't just assume that change eliminates all barriers. Change doesn't eliminate all barriers. It can create barriers for other people. So that's one of the things I think needs to be considered.
I just want to clarify a comment I made earlier around my experience. I researched, before I ran for this seat, I researched this role, and I was actually gainfully full-time employed, and I had their support. When I won, that's when I lost my job. So 15 months later, it's taken 15 months to establish full-time, because we are, I'll echo our Madam Board Chair, that as an elected official, it is one part. We do not have protections as an elected official. And because what I do for a living, I am in government relations, I am a teacher, former GCPS teacher, a lot of full-time employers, it's a conflict of interest by federal law for them to have me on their payroll. So it is a challenge as an elected official. But secondly, as someone who did their research, who wants to support people who come after me, because I recognize that I will pass the torch, I want them to I want them to feel empowered to do this job and do this work. And in my search for a full-time position, I've had employers tell me, hey, I know that you are an elected official, but I cannot support you taking time off once per month. And offers were withdrawn. So that is the reality of this board member. I can't speak for my colleagues. So I think it's imperative that we continue this conversation, not just for the current board, but also those who come behind us.
Thank you, Ms. Stone. I just have a final statement that I would be remiss not to say this, and I have to say it. You can slap me on the hand later, Dr. Simmons, but I'm going to say 350,000 black women are currently unemployed in the United States. We have 3 black board members, 3 black women who are in transitions and have been directly impacted. And we did not predict this. And many people across our nation did not predict this. But we have to navigate this space that we are dealt with. And we still have to show up, even in our own personal struggles. We have to be present, and we have to put aside our own needs for our community. And we're doing that. And I think that the situation that we have beyond ourselves, but the future of this board, is allowing more engagement of people who don't have the privilege to take a day off of work, but really thinking about how do we engage people who are working class people, who may be, single parents, or who may have different life structures that require a 2-day a week, that might have some more flexibilities. There's so many nuances. Even when you think about our legislators today, many of them are privileged to be able to serve in those roles, and many of them work for themselves. Many of them have spouses or family members or savings, so they have funds to be able to support them to be able to run. Our legislators are not as diverse in many ways, and I mean economically diverse, that also, if you extrapolate that, is also impacted around racially diverse and gender diversity. We lack that, and the root of that is they don't have the same privileges, economic privileges. And so I think that this is just a deeper conversation. And I want to recognize, and I have to name it, because we are on this board experiencing something that I would have never imagined. And it is real, and it's beyond us. And I appreciate all of our board members here who are serving. I don't have a disagreement with Mr. Knudsen or Mr. Gasper. In fact, I feel like what they have shared, when we do make changes, it could, in fact, create some other challenges. What I encourage our school system to do is examine those challenges, and let's look further around what is the economic impact. And then we have identified the economic impact already. So then we have to think creatively around, well, how can we reduce this impact? What flexible scheduling can we do with our staff members so that there isn't a financial burden? How can we navigate this in a way that is outside of the box, creative, and something we've never done before? Let's try it. And frankly, we are a school system that's done a lot of pilots. If it doesn't work, then maybe we decide in a year we go back. I don't know. All I know is I want to support the needs of our board and for people to be able to serve on this board. I don't know what will happen with me. I may be in a situation where I can't take a full day either. I don't know. But what I do know is I want to be able to support the future of the board beyond me, but just really looking at everyone doesn't have the same privilege of taking a day off or even having the economic stability to be able to do that.
All right, thank you. Dr. Taylor, I turn it over to you.
I support you professionally, but that comment was so racist on the surface. Race has nothing to do with serving on the board. I'm a white man sitting next to a white man. That was so racist. Race has nothing to do with serving on this board. That's all I have to.
I'm not talking about that. I said the impact. No. And we can talk, that's a different, we can talk about racism, because I don't have.
I'm so offended with the comment.
And if you are offended about the comment, I can tell you my intention to make that comment wasn't to offend you, Mr. Gasper. So I apologize if you were offended. My comment was not about that. What I am saying is I'm talking about a real experience, and I have no problem with taking responsibility for making you feel uncomfortable, or if you feel offended by what I said. My intention wasn't that. My intention, and I respect that you feel the way you feel. My intention of that statement wasn't to make you feel uncomfortable. It was to state a reality that we are experiencing around this nation, and black people and anti-blackness and misogynoir is apparent on this board and in the school system and in the community and in our nation. It's a reality. And I will name it, and I will not take that back. I 100% say that that is a reality. And what I am trying to say is I'm trying to give you all some context around an experience that you may not understand, and that's okay that you may not understand that. But it is real. And don't gaslight experiences and that people have are enduring right now. And it's something that I think it's important to name. And this board, these board members are experiencing this right now. We are experiencing misogynoir on this board as board members. And that is not a slight to you or not saying anything in a way that you aren't great or amazing or whatever. Like, I'm not trying to make a slight to you. This is specifically about an experience, and it's not to offend you in any way. And if you did feel offended, I apologize for that. That's not the intent. The intent was to talk about an experience that is a real experience for some of us.
Well, I'll just say that Mr. Gasper has just gone through a transition with his work as well. And I will echo that, you know, that your comments about, I think when you say that the only people that can take a day off are privileged, you're putting us in a category. First of all, we don't have to take an entire day off. We're talking about less than half a day with the commute. Less than half a day, because the other half is after hours. Less than half a day. And Mr. Gasper has had to go through that conversation in the same context of him trying to provide for his family, that I'm an elected official, and here are the requirements that I have for me. And so he could just as easily say, I just got a job based upon my one day that I set aside for my board work. Not 2 weeks, not whatever. So anyway, my point is that we all have our individual experiences. We're all here because we chose to serve. And you have to count the cost, and then you have to figure out how to get it done. And I'm just saying, if every year we're going to sit down and go through whose situation is in it's not us. It's not just us. We have hundreds of people that are affected by the decision that we make. And so it can't be entered into lightly, and it can't be entered into just because of a single board member's situation. And I'm not trying to call anyone out, because we could have this discussion every 6 months based upon a person's particular circumstance. And so from my perspective, if you want to serve in public office, then you do the research, and I know you did, and I appreciate that, and your circumstances change. And I truly feel sorry for the fact that they did, and the fact that you've had the difficulty finding an organization that would support you in providing the public service that you're providing, because that is a tragedy. And because your willingness to do this says something about you and your character and your energy and your drive and your desire to help. And if I were an employer, I would want to see that in the people that I hire. So I don't know that just because I kind of bristle, Dr. Treese, like Steve does, at the systemic assumption that we just have a great life and we can do whatever we want, whenever we want. But I'm the one who's saying I'm okay with the status quo. And so by not being more open to change, somehow I've got it better. That's what comes across. So, and I don't think that's the case, and I don't think that's the case for Mr. Gasper. We're here because we love our community. We've raised our families in this community, and we want to serve and give back to our community. So that's why we're here. And we've made the decisions, and we've worked with the people around us to support that. That's all.
I just want to reiterate something that Rachel shared in her final comment around this decision being beyond this current board, and in thinking about who we're passing the torch to. And for me, it's important that the time of the meeting not be a barrier for someone that wants to serve in this seat. And as is, it is a barrier. In my previous role, I do see it as a privilege to be able to take a day or half a day off every month. As a teacher, I don't think I would have been afforded that privilege. But in the last role I had, I was afforded that privilege. So for me, it's not about doing something for Rachel. It's about what are we doing to remove barriers for those that want to serve in the best interest of our students. And so I believe district staff and Dr. Taylor, you all are clear in that we're asking for you all to further consider the implications so that we can revisit and make a decision next month. Thank you.
All right, so I'm going to read this. It's now time to exit for TAC, so I'll do the TAC component, and then we'll just pick executive session up at 5:30. We already had a slot for it. So the Gwinnett County Public Schools Teacher Advisory Council, our TAC, is an important partner in strengthening teaching and learning across our district. TAC gives our executive leadership, the superintendent, and the Board of Education a direct connection to the current lived experiences and insights from classrooms across Gwinnett. TAC is a solution-focused group made up of teacher leaders from every school. They bring diverse perspectives, highlight what's working, and help identify opportunities to improve student and staff experiences. I truly value meeting with this council throughout the year. Their feedback keeps us grounded in what teachers need to help students thrive. This afternoon is our second TAC meeting for the year. For the third year in a row, we have intentionally scheduled this meeting at the start of the budget process. This ensures that the board hears directly from teachers about fiscal year 27 budget priorities, as well as what's going well and what additional supports could strengthen teaching and learning district-wide. Board members, your room assignments and agendas were shared last week during our board's monthly briefings, and you also have copies in your packets today. Our teachers are here and ready to begin. Members of the executive cabinet will join each group to take notes and keep us on schedule. The session will end no later than 5:15 p.m., and we will resume at 5:30 here for the executive session. Thank you for all your engagement with our teachers. I will be visiting each room briefly and look forward to reconvening here afterward. Have a great TAC meeting, and I will now ask Dr. Chair Simmons to conclude the work session.
Thank you. If there are no other comments or questions, this concludes our work session. Please be reminded that at 6:30 p.m., there will be a performance by the Lilburn Middle School Orchestra and Rockbridge Elementary School Honor Chorus program in the lobby area of the boardroom. At this time, we will be dismissed to our TAC meetings, and I believe we all have our respective rooms, and we will reconvene at 5:30 here. Thank you.